I had no social life. I had no massive group of friends. Academically, I had nothing to go into because I couldn't stand schoolwork. And then you sit there and you think, there's no point. What's the point? And for me, I did 3 or 4 months of having a breakdown from being a very happy, strong, confident kid to losing probably 50-60% of my weight, unable to eat, unable to move, unable to do anything, pretty much being taken to hospital and put onto a drip and told if you don't start eating in the next couple of weeks, you're going to probably die. From being an incredibly strong sports person to go into that, and then this light sort of switched on and said, I just need to get into the gym. So for me, the gym absolutely saved my life. But then it was trying to find a new purpose. What's the point of going to the gym? And then I remember thinking, well, I'm just going to be the biggest, horriblest looking monster I can create.
Martyn Ford, man, you were like 390 pounds at your largest. You're what, 6'7", 6'8"?
6'7"-ish, yeah.
Dude, what do you eat in a day?
Well, not as much now. But going back when I was that weight, I mean, you'd probably be looking at consuming around 13,000 calories a day. Yeah, 20. It's so funny because I speak to kids now about food and nutrition and all the science that surrounds training and the protocols that they go through, and fasting and intermittent fasting and carb loading and all of this. Going back to when I was at my peak 20 odd years ago, probably 15, 20 years ago, none of this really existed. Yeah. YouTube wasn't such a thing. The science wasn't such an interesting topic to bodybuilders back then. It was guys in the gym who knew very little about not much.
Yeah.
But they knew how to get big. And in all honesty, the basics for me was quite easy. It was the more you eat, the bigger you're going to get, was my philosophy. And that was kind of the approach that I took. Now, in today's world, I would imagine it'd be ripped to shreds. Yeah. My going back when I really piled on the weight, going from below normal size to over normal size within 12 months, it was a strange diet of pasta, Weetabix, tuna, eggs, baked beans, loads of milk. And it was very much, do you remember the food pyramids?
Yeah.
So I was a sports person before I got into acting and to the fitness industry. And I remember when I was 11, 12 years old, the only advice we ever got on nutrition was this picture of a food pyramid, which you could rip apart now, but basically the layer was carbohydrates, and then I think it went to proteins and then fats, and it was kind of you work your way down. So it was probably 20, 30, 50% in that retrospect. And I remember thinking, well, if it works for fitness, it's going to work for muscle build because it's the same kind of area and topic. So I just presumed that the more I ate, the bigger I would get. And it worked a treat. It worked an absolute treat. I was absolutely carb loading every single day. And there was never a break of when I was going to eat, even through the night. I would eat 24/7, which people will probably laugh at, and one say I was stupid for doing so, or two say absolute BS, there's no way you ate through the night. But you could ask my wife and my parents before that. I would wake up 2-3 times and be cooked steak, I'd have eggs, I'd have salmon, you name it, I'd eat it and cook it.
Just have it prepped ahead of time or what?
No, just straight out of the fridge, go and cook. 2-3 o'clock in the morning, standard 20-30 eggs.
And you still grew.
I grew like crazy, bro. I absolutely grew like crazy. And I never had a big budget back then, so it wasn't like I had the food, the money to buy the quality food. So I was honestly going around the shops looking what was the cheapest way to get the most amount of volume. And for me, that's where the pasta and the rice and the Weetabix and the milk sort of made sense, and the tuna and the eggs, because it was cheap. Yeah. Back in the day when I was 21, 22. I wasn't earning a lot of money at that stage. And my food bill was something that it was an essential, but it was also a non-essential because of the amount. So I kind of had to stay within budget to a reason, and that's what worked for me. It worked a treat. It was incredible. I wasn't lean. I wasn't crazy lean on that, but I was extremely strong. I had incredible energy and ability to train. I still think to this day, I think the base of the fitness work that I did from the age of 8, 9 up until I was 20 is what it grew the motor inside.
Yeah.
The mindset to be able to train hard, to work hard, to push was there through the years of training, and then the hunger and ambition to try and transform myself into being something that was noticeable. When you add those two together, I think food kind of becomes secondary.
Yeah.
I'm a massive believer in that we try to tick too many boxes and forget the fundamental hard work.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to training. People want to tick all of the boxes and try and work as less as possible.
Yeah. And the hard work is the one big box that's left unchecked.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of gone 360 on this in a sense of we always used to train hard and have very naive to the importance of nutrition. But I kind of feel like, the saying that many people have heard is 6 packs are made in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to argue that point, but I feel it's almost kind of gone too far, whereas people place way too much emphasis on the food and they forget the importance of hard work. And it's almost needs to balance itself back out. You can't out-train a bad diet. I agree with that, but you also have to train.
Yeah. What about... So that was how you put on the size. I mean, I've seen some pictures of you when you were pretty darn diced too, right?
As I went through it, I understood the food more.
Yeah.
Through the years. So it's 10 years of when I was really at my biggest, my peak. And I think the initial phase was a very carb heavy. And then I started to realize, okay, I was putting size on, but I was very soft. I didn't look good, although I was huge. So then I kind of tried to delve a bit more into the nutrition part, but we had such limited knowledge back in the days. 25 years ago, you'd get all of your information out of Flex magazine. We didn't have the knowledge and the opportunity to learn that we have today.
Yeah.
And that made a massive difference. So a lot was trial and error. And I think that's kind of where you begin to really understand and appreciate on a level what does and doesn't work. You might not understand exactly why it does or doesn't work, but you know it does or doesn't work. Like I know if I add fruit to my diet, it's terrible. Like it kills me really bad. I will add so much fat. I will have stomach issues like crazy, and my energy will dip 24/7. And I also can't control my cravings for food just by fruit. And that's something I've learned over the years.
Yeah.
And there's different forms of carbohydrates that will affect me differently. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a way I couldn't introduce it if I was to food combine or so on and so forth, but there's certain things that I've done and tried and tested over the years that subconsciously I will avoid or steer to. Like if I want to put size back on now, I know exactly what I need to add in and how to switch up the training to make that work. And for me, the transition from being small to big was trying to focus on the volume of food, the amount of food, and the quality of food. That was the one thing I really learned and appreciated over the years. Was the reason I was just big and not in shape was because the quality of the food wasn't there.
Yeah.
The volume of the food was there so I could do the hard work and the training, but the results weren't there because it wasn't good enough fuel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a large bolus of food that's just driving the energy, but not really actually, the refinement that you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think that also comes into something that, I massively believe lacks in today's world is you having clarity of your own objective. Having clarity of why you're training in the first place. Like, I'm not saying the way I ate and trained was bad for everyone, because if you were to play a sport which would require you to have a high energy threshold and actually carry extra weight because you wanted that extra weight to be able to tackle or to be able to stand strong or to be able to lift weight, then that diet would be great because it would give you all of that. But if your sport was to be a bodybuilder, the diet would be terrible because you wouldn't be able to get in shape. So having clarity of your objective, I think, is essential before you start to try and understand how to eat to do something.
After today's video, I put a link down below for LMNT electrolytes, and now, in case you haven't seen it, they have their sparkling electrolytes, like an actual can, a ready-to-drink can of electrolytes in a sparkling fashion. So it tastes like a soda, but you're getting the electrolyte effect. So if you're in a caloric deficit, you're trying to cut, or you're trying to build muscle but stay lean at the same time, these things are amazing because you can sip on them during your workout and it feels like you're sipping on a soda, but you can also sip on it throughout the day and it just tastes really good. But they still have the same 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams magnesium. Totally fasting friendly. They won't break a fast. You could have them before your fasted workout. They also have their regular packs, which of course I still use all the time. Like that's my baseline. But anyway, that link down below gets you a free variety pack with any purchase. So free variety pack. All you got to do is make a purchase and you get a sample variety pack with each flavor. So you got like a citrus salt, which is like lemon lime. You've got a watermelon salt. You've got a grapefruit salt, all these really good flavors. So that link, go to drinklmnt.com/Thomas, drinklmnt.com/Thomas, and it's in the top line of this description. Make sure you check out their sparkling flavors.
And even deeper than that is like what's behind the objective, right? So with bodybuilding, it's so interesting because there's usually these underlying reasons.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right? So with sport, it's slightly different. Sometimes there's underlying reasons. Oh yeah, my dad pushed me into this or my parents pressured me for this. But a lot of times it's simply love of sport, right? Bodybuilding, I feel like back in the day, there was probably a love of sport, but there's a lot more of sort of getting into it for interesting reasons or for...
I would say a very high percentage of bodybuilders hate themselves, which is why they enter the sport.
Agreed.
And they continue to hate themselves through the sport.
Because
they will never be satisfied.
They'll never be satisfied, and it's a way of the pain brings an element of control, and it gives this sort of feeling of, it's masochistic behavior in a way, and it's when you're lost in that, and that's sort of your objective, so to speak. It's really difficult to make that not murky, right? Because your objective is hate myself. My objective is pain. My objective is punish. So how do you ever come out of that with a long-term game plan?
I think there's another way to look at that as well. I think the other angle is that you never feel good enough. You feel that not so much you hate yourself, but other people hate you.
Yeah.
And you feel that the way you look is the reason that you're not popular. And going to the gym, you can see what you see in someone's external may confuse you into thinking that is the reason they are popular.
Yeah.
Oh, he looks great because he's got a six-pack or he's got a chest or he's got arms and I haven't. And that's why he's being invited to the parties. That's why people like him. That's why he's got friends and I'm just this fat mess. And then you start thinking, well, if I do X, Y, and Z, I can get there. And then you do X, Y, and Z, and you get there physically, and you're like, I still don't feel like I fit in. I'm still not happy. Okay, I need bigger arms. You get the bigger arms, I'm still not happy. I need a bigger chest. And that's the dangerous part of the fitness industry to me, is the kind of the ability to distract you from the real problems in your life.
Yeah.
And because it does release happy hormones, and because you do get that short-term lift and that short-term satisfaction through the training, and you will see a physical change as well, it kind of masks the real problems.
Yeah.
And for me, I think I initially entered bodybuilding because I hated the way I looked. I hated myself. I had no purpose. That was a real big thing for me, because I'd gone from being a sports person who was pretty damn good at the sport I was playing, and to a professional level, and picking up an injury at 18, 19, losing my career overnight, to having nothing to do. From the age of 12 till 18, 19, every day was training for sport, training to win, training to be the best, training to be the quickest, training to be the fastest, training for whatever purpose, but there was a reason to train. To all of a sudden someone pressing stop, and then kind of waking up going, what's the point? What's the point? I don't need to go to the gym. No one cares. I don't need to eat because I don't need the energy for the gym. I'll stop eating. I'll stop training. And then you kind of, a week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, and you haven't left the house, and you sat there thinking, what's the point of life? I've lost all purpose. Because when you are addicted to a subject, and my subject was fitness and sport and movement, it's the only place I could shine. When you lose that and you start looking around, academically I was terrible. I never had a massive amount of friends because I was so obsessed with being the best version of me in the sport. So everything else was non-relevant. I had no social life. I had no massive group of friends. Academically, I had nothing to go into because I couldn't stand schoolwork. And then you sit there and you think, there's no point. What's the point? And for me, I did 3 or 4 months of having a breakdown from going from being a very happy, strong, confident kid to losing probably 50-60% of my weight, unable to eat, unable to move, unable to do anything, pretty much being taken to hospital and put onto a drip and told if you don't start eating in the next couple of weeks, you're going to probably die. From being an incredibly strong sports person to going to that, and then this light sort of switched on and said, I just need to get into the gym. So for me, the gym absolutely saved my life. But then it was trying to find a new purpose. What's the point of going to the gym? And then I remember thinking, well, I'm just going to be the biggest, horriblest looking monster I can create. And that's where it came from. And I remember looking at a couple of books. And do you know what drew me to bodybuilding? The fact that you didn't need anyone.
Yeah.
I don't need friends. I don't need people there. I don't need people to help me. I can do all this on my own. I can be accountable for my own actions, and if I fail, it's my fault I failed. If I succeed, it's down to me. And that for me was kind of the pull and the draw, and the real attraction was that I didn't need anyone else. And it gave me a kind of hope and a reason to put confidence and trust into something again, because I've been let down by so many people in sport. You can't just be on your own in the sport. A football team, a cricket team, a rugby team, there's other people around you. Bodybuilding, just you and the weights. And that was what really drove me. So it was that ability to see myself progress every single day, the ability to push myself, and the ability to change where I was to try and create something for the future. And that was when the whole idea of becoming an actor sort of started, in all honesty. It was me as a skinny kid. And I thought, right, if I can create this monster that no one else has ever seen, it will give me an opportunity to get myself into the film world. And that's where I can replace the loss of the energy of being a sports person. I can now be an actor, because it's a similar kind of grandeur to the job. You know, like being a sports star. People look up to you, and people will do anything to try and get into that position. Sam's been an actor. People look up to him, like, oh my God, that was an incredible job. And I think that was kind of where it all started many years ago.
When you're you talk about having purpose when you were playing sport. Where was your purpose before that, right? You know, you kind of you do this work as you get older, and you and I were talking before we were filming about kind of where you're at now, and it's interesting how purpose tends to be ever elusive in so many ways. Like you think this is a purpose, and then life tends to say, screw you, this isn't your purpose, right? Find something else, and then you kind of, it's like it's like, you know, remember those little water weenies? You'd squeeze it and the water would come up here, and then you squeeze it and the water would go. It's kind of like, that's kind of how the ego works too. And it's just like, that's something like how purpose is, right? Like before sport, before you were in that, we're like, what felt like the purpose? Like, and then you get to these layers of it.
I entered sport like 8-9 years old.
Yeah.
So before that, it was just been an annoying little kid. But I have to say, I see it in my son and my youngest daughter. And I know I need to get them into something, or they're going to be trouble.
Yeah.
Like, they will be really hard to handle if I don't get them into something physical to expel their energy. And I was just, me and my sister, we used to fight horrendously, like during the stages before sport for me, because I had so much energy and I couldn't control it. I'd probably only sleep 2-3 hours a night. I was up 24/7. I would be throwing balls at each other, smashing bats into the walls, and like terrible children. When I think back how bad I was as a child for my parents, I feel guilty as hell. But then when you look at it and you think, I get that, I understand, like I had bounds of energy, huge amounts of energy that I couldn't expel, and it would just come out in me. And I think that's why finding the purpose at such a young age for me was essential. It's still why I train 3-4 hours a day today. It's not just, my training is counterproductive to the way I look. I know that. But it allows me to stay chilled and happy, and I enjoy training. It's my form of therapy, absolutely. And it allows me to just relax. I'm my worst enemy when I'm not doing anything.
So when you first started lifting weights, what was your volume like? Like, I mean, you're this high energy person, even at that age, I'm sure. Like, I think that's one of those things that I don't think really changes. Like you're saying, it's like I was very similar as a kid. It's just, and my son is the same way too. And I see it in him. And he's 7, and I have to take him in the garage and wrestle. Like we have to wrestle, and he's got to get it out. Like he's got to, otherwise it takes it out on his sister.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm the same way. And it's one of those things where you can try to tame that and calm that, or you can understand it about yourself, and you don't have to fit into a societal norm of this particular, right? Like I can have more energy and I can do more things. And at the end of the day, sometimes training 2 or 3 hours a day, if I have the luxury to do that, that does make me sleep better. That does make me function like a normal human being. So, that being said, high energy person, you decide you want to be a monster. So you start increasing your calories and cranking up. What does your training look like?
Training back then was, I'd say, about a good 2 hours a day. Yeah. Absolutely. It was majority of it was focused on weights. I kind of went from being a complete cardio fiend to hanging up the shoes and doing zero cardio. Literally overnight, it was insane. And I plowed all of that energy into the weight training. It was higher volume. I never went for max reps. It was 8 to 12 repetitions. It was very short rest intervals because my fitness level was insane. I was training hard as an athlete, a hell of a lot of cardio. So I kind of had this motor that would allow me to do supersets, giant sets, drop sets, forced reps, and recovery would be 25, 30 seconds. It was incredible. I was young and full of energy at that point. And I think the combination of having a higher carb diet with that form of hypertrophy training where the repetitions were around the 8 to 12, the rest was 35, 40, and the sets were probably 4 to 5 working, probably 3 to 4 working sets on each exercise, worked well for me because it was kind of the sweet spot for my longer endurance-based cardio that I'd built up over the 10 years to then marry up with the weight training. Yeah. I think if I'd gone into strength training, because I wasn't a sprinter or an explosive athlete, I don't think it would have worked as well. Yeah. My fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers would have been confused. Yeah. I kind of lent on the fact that I was a slower twitch athlete and introduced the weights into my system that way, which is why I think I found so much success. Yeah. And this was all done subconsciously. Like I had no idea about fast twitch, slow twitch, hypertrophy, strength training, endurance training, anatomical adaptation, all of that. I had no idea what any of that meant at this point. I just went with how I felt. And I knew if I went in there and worked hard, I'd get results. And that was kind of what I did. I picked exercises that were available to do at the time. Going back in them days, we didn't have the range of gym equipment we had now. So it was dumbbells, barbells, and maybe 4 or 5 machines. So it was a hell of a lot of pressing of sorts, whether that be shoulder press, chest press, incline, barbells, dumbbells, and then rows, pull downs, deadlifts, squats, and leg press, and that was pretty much it. In all honesty, it was 8 to 10 fundamental exercises done hard.
It's interesting. virtually every person that's come from some form of endurance background that's gone into strength training has had sort of similar results, right? I was a long distance runner, as a marathon runner, as a early preteen, and it wasn't until like running became a non-doable thing for me, just because I was running myself into the ground, pretty much literally, that I picked up weight training. And it was the same kind of thing. It was like being able to, and I think there's evidence to back that up now, like even when you, not necessarily with type 1, but with this endurance capacity and mitochondrial density, you've got so much just additional mitochondria than someone that's maybe been a strength or anaerobic athlete their whole life, that it really lends itself well to hypertrophy. And it really,
I agree massively.
And just like you said, just the ability to recover between sets, the sheer amount of volume you can consolidate into a shorter period of time. If you and Bob have 2 hours to train, and you simply have the work capacity and the motor to do 1.5 to 2x the amount of volume at the same perceived effort, you're going to grow way more than Bob, right?
I think it's a different mindset as well. When you come from an endurance background, there's a switch in you where you almost go into a meditation state.
The pain cave, right?
Yeah, and you kind of can take yourself out of that quit. Where I think if you're an explosive athlete, you train yourself to give 100%, but then you know there's a long rest coming after. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I will run this lap, but I'm not doing another one for an hour.
Yep.
And they have that mindset, like they'll lift insanely heavy, but then as soon as you try and take that away and do something else, it's like you're speaking a foreign language to the body, and the body just doesn't want to know. And that also leads to different types of physiques and shapes. You know, I'm fascinated by physiques and shapes and looking at people's training methods and how their body comes out the back end of it, because you know you can grow muscle by doing 2-3 repetitions. There's many bodybuilders who have done, who just train ridiculously heavy with horrendous form and look insane. And it's kind of, you then ask yourself, well, why does that work and then this doesn't work, or why does that work and that works also, and how does it? You have to really understand that although we all look the same in certain ways, we are very different when it comes to the makeup of body, and when it comes to how the body repairs itself, how the body grows. And you know, it really did fascinate me at that point. I think my biggest fascination for understanding the human body and anatomy was when I was ill, because I wanted to repair myself, I wanted to mend myself, and that's kind of when I started to look into the way that we made, and you know, different people from different backgrounds, different countries, different ethnicities, and the advantages and disadvantages that people carry. And you kind of think, well, I can do all of this and it doesn't make any difference because they have such an incredible lean-to for this, or they have such an incredible lean-to that. So I think for me, I think I found what my body was good at by accident and just ran with it. And that's why I got the results that I got, because I never had to eat 100% correct or train 100% correct, because I kind of was going in the right direction. And genetics make a massive difference. You know, genetics make a humongous difference, but mindset allowed me to expose that to its fullest.
How did it feel when you went from a debilitating injury that crushed you physically and definitely mentally and emotionally? You go that, and then all of a sudden, you know, you start putting on size and you're garnering attention because of your size, right? That must have felt really good at that young age. Or was it something that you think shaped things differently for you now, you know, to be able to almost find validation in that?
Do you know what? I wouldn't actually say that the attention was a thing, because I was so introverted that going out wasn't a thing for me. I was never used to going out as a teenager, because I was always training. Mm-hmm. I was never used to worrying about the attention, because my primary focus was on sport. Mm-hmm. So in a sense of attention out and about, didn't make any difference. For me, where the gratitude came from was people in the gym, noticing the growth, noticing the strength, noticing the change. That was the tick box for me that sort of drove me on to to go from just being big to stupidly big. And then I think the competitiveness side of it came in, where there was 2 or 3 good bodybuilders in the gym at the time, and I was kind of thinking, I'm not only going to catch you up, I want to take over you guys. And I think I did that and more, and tenfold. And it got to a point then where, you know, the gym owner was kind of saying, there's no point you doing bodybuilding. You're going to waste your time doing bodybuilding. You've got such a freakish size and look, and go into film. And I was like, I already had that planted in my mind. And I think that was kind of the seal for me. I kind of outgrew the stage in a weird way. Not that I would have done very well as a bodybuilder, because my balance and symmetry was off.
Well, and just the sheer like muscle bellies, just
It
with
was
your
I was
limb
just
length.
off. I was never fussed about what I looked like.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be something.
Yeah.
And for me, it was always about performance and the ability to push yourself rather than what the mirror says. Because ultimately, you're never going to be happy with the mirror.
Never going to be. Never.
And the sooner you can realize that and overcome that, I feel the faster you can start to enjoy training and really appreciate the fact that you're alive and living and breathing, and not take that for granted. Because it's when you hit the lowest of the low, you realize how lucky you are just to be here today.
Well, you're 43 years old now. Obviously, your goals have changed significantly. What do things look like now? I mean, now you're not training for size. You're not eating for size. You know, you've got.
You have to humble yourself, and you have to accept that there's stages in your life where you can do things, and there's stages in your life where you can't do those things. And for me, at the age I'm at now, my priorities have changed. My goals have changed, and physically, that is something that the way that I move, the way I walk, the way I can function plays a massive part in my job. So I have to take all of that into account, and then look at the way that I look, the way that I can perform, and so on. What is the direction I want to take in my life? And for me, it's to be recognized as a serious action actor. And to do so, it's not just the physical on that. There's the ability to perform, the ability to improve as an actor. There's the ability to understand characters and so on. And your physicality is a part of that, but not the only part. And I think for me, it was important not to get lost in just one way of looking a certain way and missing out on all of the other aspects that I need to work on. There's only so much time we have in a day. You can't plow 100% into the way you look, because if that was the way that acting worked, then you'd have every single bodybuilder in the world would be an actor, and the actors wouldn't exist. Does that make sense?
No.
So for me, it's like I want to look as good as I can, but there's a percentage of time I can dedicate to that. So I need to be realistic then, and my age, and the travel, and the kids, and the fact that I have done numerous years of training with slight injuries and so on. So how do I create longevity and be the best version of that I can be now? So that's kind of where my mindset was when trying to figure out an objective and a goal. And now my goal is to be extremely flexible and versatile with the ability to change my look. So if I need to put on 20, 30 pounds for a role in 2-3 months, I can do that. If I need to lose weight, I can do that, because I'm at that happy space. I'm very healthy internally. I feel awesome. I can go cardio freak, or I can go muscle freak within the space of 2-3 months. So it gives me that flexibility then as an actor to say, right, well, if you want to dial you in to look a certain way for this, I can do that. And I just feel as if I'm in that floating place, and not the floating place that you feel you're not progressing, but a floating place where I'm ready to turn on the dial.
Yeah.
And it's a very nice place to be. I think you briefly spoke about it earlier with body fat percentage. You're hovering around this percent because it doesn't feel good to be at that percent. Mm-hmm. But if you need to get to that percent, you can.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks away.
Yeah, and it's kind of where I feel now. I'm hovering around a nice space to be.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm enjoying my training. I'm enjoying my fitness. I'm enjoying my weight training. I'm enjoying fight training. it's all there. And that's kind of where I'd like to sit at the moment, is enjoying the work rather than feeling like the work is my life.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like your identity was, I mean, you're obviously still a gigantic guy, but did you ever feel like you were, we talk about this thing called audience capture sometimes, where it's like your audience sees you a certain way and you can't help but sort of wrap your identity in that. Did you struggle with that at a large size? You ever feel like, okay, am I worth something if I'm not this? You clearly don't feel that way now because you've come.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. And I think there's still a stage of you where you go, well, if I was to be bigger, would I get more work? And if I was to go back to this, would I get more? And you kind of have to sit there and accept that may be the case. Any professional footballer or athlete of such is like, at 45 years old, they can't look back and be honest and say, well, I should still get a pro contract and the same level of when I was 23, 24. Yeah. Well, at 23, 24, you were a hell of a lot better than you are now. Mm-hmm. So then you have to sort of accept, that time does move and things do change. So you kind of think, well, what else can I bring to the table? If my physical stature, which was what got me into the door in the first place, is slowly going to come down, what else can I add to that to bring me back up? Yeah. Because you just have to open your eyes and see what you need to work on to get there. And I think that's the joy of the acting world for me now, is I kind of feel I can plow all of my energy and time that I was plowing into fitness into acting. And there's no time limit on that. There's no shelf limit. You will become better at being an actor or a director or a producer as you become older because of experience and knowledge and time. Whereas fitness is pretty much the opposite.
Well, you mentioned, you talk about how bodybuilders and fitness in general, people generally hate themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's this very difficult discussion that you have to have with yourself of like, am I worthy of love without this, right? Like, right, you've obviously have a wife and kids, and I have a wife and kids, and that helps tremendously with that, right? Like you feel that unconditional love and you're just sort of like, well, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say, would my wife still love me if I was not 7% body fat? Would my audience still watch me if I wasn't 7% body fat? And that is a deeply rooted issue. That's not an issue with the audience. That's not an issue with even my physique. That's a deep-seated issue of not feeling worthy of love. So you feel like it has to come from all the things that have protected you and kept you safe throughout your entire life, right? For us, it's been the gym, it's been fitness, that has kept us safe. It has kept us safe mentally. It's kept us safe when we look in the mirror. It's kept us safe financially. How could we not develop a attachment to that, right? It's just human nature that keeps me safe. And then you add a family into it. This keeps my family safe. My body, the way that I look, keeps my family safe. So identity just digs deeper, deeper, deeper. And then all of a sudden you have these days where you're just like, what if I didn't do this? What would happen, right? And, I'm impressed that you've been able to like make that shift and see that you're worthy of something independent of just being gigantic, right?
I feel as well, because I kind of got threw into the ocean in a sense of having a massive internal injury about 6-7 years ago, and kind of my stomach exploded, which was a bit of a bad day at the office.
Was that from eating 12,000 calories?
It was actually, so what it was, I had an operation when I was 2 weeks old, and that scar tissue had slowly come away over the last few years, and it caused a blockage in my stomach. So I went from being 390 for about 8-9% body fat, looking incredible, to losing most of that in the space of 4 or 5 weeks, because I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, I couldn't do anything. I had to have my whole stomach reconstructed, right? Which caused me a hell of a lot of problems on the back end of it. Now, that point was absolutely when I started asking myself all the questions that you just spoke about. And yes, it made a massive difference to work. Yes, it made a massive difference to how I felt. Yes, it made a massive difference to the security that I had within myself. But with all that being said, it also helped me grow so much, because you realize that you can bounce back. And that wasn't the first time I've bounced back in life. I've had many occasions where I've been at rock bottom and just realized that wasn't the place that I was supposed to be. And there's always a way to step up. you just need to find the right path and be patient. I think that's the biggest thing that people lack today is patience. Understand that you have the most important secret weapon, which is your mindset and your heart. And as long as you have that, anything else on the top end, you can still work on. But if you don't have the ability to want to be the best version of yourself and the ability to work hard physically, it means nothing. Yeah. And that was what saved me. It was, okay, I can lose my muscle and I can lose this, but I know I can then focus on trying to be, if I wanted to be a lawyer or an accountant, I have the right mindset to get there. I know it would take me 5 years, but I have the right mindset to be strict enough on myself with the discipline that I've taught myself through the years of fitness to become that person, so I can become a better version of myself because I can do that. And I feel that's what I learned at that point, was that at the moment it matters what I look like physically because this is what puts the food on the table. But if I lose that, the mindset and the heart that I have, I can put food on the table this way or this way. And that's the real superpower. It's not the muscles, it's not the six-pack, it's not the chest, it's the ability to use that and this. And that's the attractive part of someone. Because within that, you realize that even if you lose everything, you can rebuild it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the right mindset, you can't. And let's be honest, to get six-pack, to get abs, and that's very easy to do nowadays. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. It's following the right protocol.
Yeah. You mentioned, like, when you talk about the endurance side of things, that I think that to me is more impressive than the getting to 390 pounds, right? Because I know what that's like, and I know that, like, when you have the ability to have that endurance, you have a unique relationship with pain, right? You have a unique relationship with work. You go into something, you know it's going to suck, and you do it anyway. And like you mentioned, it's a meditative state. You kinesthetic awareness, turn the pain off, right? And you just plow through it, and that is a mindset that is transferable into multiple different disciplines within life, right? And you just so happen you're like a radioactive weapon that's just pointed in the right direction. And you know that about yourself. You said even as a kid, you had all this energy, right? That is one of those things where, whether it's genetic or whether it's biological, whether it's energetic, whether it's quantum, whatever, you have a lot of energy, right? You know that if you point that energetic weapon in the right direction, you're going to succeed. It's not even a question. It's not even, it's beyond not even a question. This exists. This is what I am. If this goes away, the part that's hard to comprehend until I think you get older and you have experiences, like you may consciously know, yes, I can turn this and I can go a different direction, but to know that I'm going to be okay, like I'm going to be safe because I have this weapon and I know that I can turn it the right direction.
Trusting the weapon.
Trusting it, yes.
And also finding the right target.
Yeah.
I think the problem is you can bounce from target to target.
It'd be easy to get into drugs. It'd be easy to go anywhere.
Oh, right? That's why I've never touched recreational drugs in my life, because I knew at a very early age, if I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke, I don't do recreational drugs, because I know if I did, I'd be an absolute mess. Yep. Like, I have a very compulsive personality and very addictive personality as it is, hence why we train so much. and I feel like people just don't understand themselves enough nowadays, which is why we have so many problems with people nowadays. And also the way that the world is, we are expected to do less, but the way that the food is handed to us gives us the energy to do more. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, makes perfect sense.
And that's where the problem lies. It's kind of, it just doesn't make sense the way that it's gone and going.
Input doesn't equal output.
Nowhere near.
Yeah.
Nowhere near. And that causes a lot of problems. That causes the kids in the room that want to smash the room up because they're frustrated, they're confused, they're lost, they're overstimulated. The crap that's in the food increases that by 10. Yeah. And then you wonder why we have problems.
Yeah. No, you talked about patience, right? Like, or lacking patience, lacking discipline, and I wanted to touch on this specifically because I'm sure you are a role model to a lot of young kids, right? Like you're just even teenagers, right? And you've been in this space, and you see this desire for some of these young guys to just get as huge as possible, right? And they'll go to any lengths imaginable to get there, and that's a dangerous, slippery slope, right?
Yeah, it's dangerous. It's sad, and it's also, it's probably one of my biggest hates on this industry is the falseness and especially nowadays with AI and the ability to change images, the ability to create something that's not real, the ability to make children feel inadequate because of the way that certain people look, and that is a huge problem. There's a huge problem with that, because these 15, 16-year-old kids nowadays are trying to achieve a physique that really a grown-ass adult in his late 20s, if he'd trained for 15 years, could have.
Yeah.
And these kids want it in 12 months.
You want it now.
And they're willing to do anything to get it. And that they're being influenced and driven and educated by people who are just... What's the most polite way to put this?
You don't have to be polite.
My issue is that people are willing to do anything for short-term and fast results, to maximize exposure, to make money, and their health is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Which we sound so old when we say this, but at 43 and been through it, seen it, and had many friends who have passed away, and they were doing things that were nowhere near as bad as what the kids of today are doing.
Yeah.
And I've had 15, 16-year-olds ask me questions in the gym, and I'm like, how do you even know what that means?
Yeah.
How do you even know what drug does what at 15, 16? Like, your body isn't even at the stage where you should only have just started using weights. Never mind considering using drugs. Like, what the hell? Where does that mindset come from? It doesn't make any sense. But the problem is we push such crazy agendas onto kids nowadays, and they have access to everything. They have access to social media, they have access to magazines, they have access to all of these images of people that they think are real, and they're not. And they are unable to achieve a look that comes anywhere near that. So they presume the answer is to jump on all of the drugs under the sun. And there needs to be a point where these kids understand that, yes, they will work 100%, but look deeper into what you're looking at. Look at those people who are influencing you to do this, to look like that, and have a look at them at a greater level. Scratch the surface.
Yeah.
Scratch the surface and just look at some big triggers that should be worrying to you. Have a look at the skin, have a look at the hair, have a look at the nails, have a look at the hands, have a look at them in general, have a look at the personalities, have a look at their injuries, have a look at the whole persona. And you willing to sacrifice and give up your entire life for 5-6 years of being big.
And we're talking, I mean, we're not talking about realistically even people that are...
They don't even look good.
Yeah, no, it's well, and it's also just, no one here is saying steroids don't work, not saying that, there's not, quite frankly, responsible use of them. What we're talking about is, we're seeing it now. I mean, people in their 20s running amounts, not 3 to 4 times what Mr. Olympia would be running 15, 20 years ago. Yeah. Like literally, grams and grams of testosterone.
The problem is as well, all right, and this is just coming from an outsider's point of view. Depending on what country you're in, the drugs are illegal or not illegal, right? Now, how much do you think the drug usage has gone up over the last 10 years?
Oh, man, I'd probably say 3 to 4x.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So where does it come from? Where does the supply come from? Because
China.
it's illegal.
Yeah.
So they're buying it from where?
Yeah, I'm sure there's
no my concern for these kids nowadays is that, like any other drug on the market, people are making them at home in bathtubs. They're using the wrong substance, the wrong amounts, and these kids have no idea what they're injecting.
Yeah.
And that is a huge issue. And the problem is you have 101 issues with that. One, they don't know how much is in it. So they could have a high and a low and a high and a low, which is going to mess them up on the best way they can be messed up, because that's going to mess their hormones up. Or two, there could be compounds in there that cause them serious issues.
Yeah, abscesses and
way more than that. There's so much, and it's just such a minefield of danger for them, and for no reason. The patience and the ability to sit down and to understand the basics and to work hard has just been lost. And it's this fast, I want to look like X, Y, and Z, and they're being influenced by people who are reckless, is the only way to put it. And that's the dangerous part for the kids.
Do you think you having kids, I mean, even at a subconscious level, has sort of changed?
Change your mindset,
yeah. The reason, like, what do I want to put out?
We all make stupid mistakes. Like, everyone goes through life, and I'm not saying that these kids are bad kids, but what I'm saying is the ability for. When I was 21, 22, I did some stupid stuff. I was going through a bad time in my life, right? I never had the access to put that stuff onto the internet to influence other people of my age to do the same shit.
Yeah.
Right? Let's just talk about an alcoholic, for instance. If you've got an alcoholic who carries a following of 10 million and he thinks it's cool to drink 20 shots on a Wednesday afternoon, and he's encouraging people to do a Wednesday afternoon shot day with me on live, how many people do you think that actually follow him would join in and build up a habit and a routine? That guy's going through a time in his life, and he's got the ability to encourage and bring others in. It's a very dangerous place to be. It's the same as drug use in sport, especially as it's like a popular thing now in the bodybuilding community to talk about gear. And it's, if I talk about gear, I know it's going to get me likes and X, Y, and Z. And if I talk about doing stupid amounts of gear, it's going to give me fame.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And the thing is, half of these kids aren't even doing that amount. They're saying it because they get likes. And you're like, you're influencing people who are naive to it and stupid because they believe everything you're saying. Like, we could sit here and go, let's do a podcast and say I ate 25,000 calories in one day. People are going to click on it just because you've said you ate 25,000 calories. There's no way I'm going to eat 25,000 calories. No. But we know it would drive the numbers. And that's the problem today. People unable to understand what's right, what's wrong, and people understanding and wanting to believe anything to get the results and willing to do anything to get the results.
Except the work.
9 times out of 10, yeah. I've seen them train. I've seen people train you see it all the time. You're like, they spend more time on the phone than doing a working set. Yeah. And you kind of think, well, you could, if you were to train properly and eat properly, you wouldn't need all that shit. Because you're taking that to counteract the fact you're not doing it properly. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, if you do it properly and add that, yeah, it's insane results. You're talking Olympia level, if that's what you want to do. But you don't need to do that just to look good on the street level. Yeah. So it's trying to find out how that works. But I mean, I think with anything in life, you just have to worry about yourself and your own family. Yeah. Because you can say anything 110 times. People will listen to what they want to listen to. And people will do what they want to do. And I'm happy and fine with that. It's just as someone that's been through a whole journey, if I can give advice in it and it resonate with someone, that's great. If people choose to ignore it or say BS to it, that's also great. I don't care. Yeah. It's just one of those things I think sometimes you have to go through it to learn from your own mistakes.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's Pavlovian too, right? It's like if the stimulus response is, hey, I do this and I get attention, then people are just going to do it more and more, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So it's you see it just all walks of life within this industry. Okay, well, that person's 4% body fat, and look at all the validation they get. Look at all the likes they get. They must be making so much money that I need to, it's.
I mean, I completely agree. And between us, I reckon we could name 50 influencers, bodybuilders, fitness influencers, whatever you want to call them, in the last 2 years that have died.
Yeah.
And under the age of 35.
Yeah.
But what validation do you want from that?
Yeah. But that's not the fun validation to look at. Like it's very interesting that the younger population, and even some of the people that are our age, are only willing to look at the upside.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only part that's glamorized. It's very easy to just dismiss, well, that only happened because of X. Like, you're going to make an excuse for anything, right?
The amount of times you read stuff where it's like, oh, we're going to blame steroids again. I'm like, the kid's 30.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Because it's the only thing that makes sense. Oh, well, he may have had the vaccine. Yeah. Or he may have had this. Or there may be underlying factors. Or he may be taking copious amounts of drugs.
Yeah.
Which one do you think it is?
Yeah.
Do you think he had an allergy to tomatoes and apples, or do you think he was taking a shitload of trin?
Yeah, yeah.
At 2% body fat.
And the thing is like when you get into, if we break into the scientific discussion for a second, the bodybuilders will tell you, well, that's fine. It's safe. You don't know, actually. No. You don't know. And I'm not even here saying they're good, bad, or ugly. Let's just put that aside. We don't even have. These are things that are not necessarily used medically. We don't have randomized controlled trials on tren. We don't have randomized controlled trials on tren plus turinabol and this and
I think deep down, you ask anyone the God's honest truth, they all know it's the most dangerous sport in the world.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much playing with fire every single time you consider entering a show.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. It's one of the reasons I never did a show, because there's levels that you go through bodybuilding, and you have to ask yourself, am I willing to do this? Am I willing to do that? Am I willing to diet? Yeah, easy, no problem. That's fine. Am I willing to do everything else on the other end of it to get to that level? Well, no. Because one, I was naive and had no idea what it would do to me. I never had that interest to be a bodybuilder. It never ticked boxes. Now, I'm not saying that they're right or wrong. I'm a massive advocate of people doing, if it doesn't hurt anyone, you can do what you want to do. My issue is the naivety and the influence that people have on vulnerable children and kids, especially social media. And I think that's probably what's really driven me lately to more towards fitness and health as well, and to really focus on being the healthiest version of myself that I can be, because you realize it actually feels really nice being there. You get less attention, you might get less money, you might get less jobs, but it feels nice to be able to wake up and feel good, to not be aching, to not be able to touch your toes, to not be able to roll over on the bed for your arms cramping or so on. Just to wake up and feel good is a very nice place to be. But I think it's a stage that the community is going through. I think it's a stage that it won't vanish anytime soon. People are willing to do anything to look a certain way, and it's just it's a cowboy market, in a sense of there's a lot out there that is trash, and there are some incredibly educated people within that mix. And the sad bit is that the majority of people will pick you on the way you look. Yeah. And that's the reality of it. If someone looks incredible, they obviously know what they're talking about. Whereas in the honest truth is, if someone looks incredible, they're probably taking a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a deeper play that if someone has the ability to look incredible without taking a bunch of stuff, then there is, just like we've talked about, that inherent ability to be successful across many domains, right? And it's almost like this, things get twisted when the drugs are involved so much, because then it's falsified, right? You get to this position where then maybe you do have opportunity, but can you ever execute on that opportunity because you don't actually have the goods? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You don't actually, when the pedal hits the metal, actually hits the fan, you don't have the goods.
The thing is as well, it doesn't become an advantage when everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And they said that with bodybuilding, that the top 1% will always be the top 1% because all the other stuff they'll be doing. And it's just, it is, I think it's just life in general now. People just want to be successful quick without doing the hard work.
What is success, man? Like really, like, it's like, I mean, out of curiosity, what would you define as success?
To be able to be free, happy, and in full control of your own life. I feel now that I'm successful. I've been able to bring my kids. I think we probably live a very similar life. My children are in homeschooling at the moment. We travel around. We visit incredible places, and I do a job that I love. Yeah. And all of the children are able to eat. We have somewhere to sleep, and we are experiencing life to its fullest. For me, that's success.
And if it all went away outside of your family, you'd still feel happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. Well, yeah, I as long as I had something to focus on, I'm good.
Well said. Yeah, it's like basic needs being met and something to direct that energy towards, so that you're not self-destructing.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing in the world for me would be to retire and have that. I just couldn't. I don't understand the point of being here and not being here to do something.
Yeah. What are you after? It's just like you see those people that are, they retire at 60 years old, and then, they last 2 years before they like spin something else up, right?
Yeah. I had a friend who retired mid-30s. His dad was a successful businessman. He left him a couple of businesses to run, and he worked his socks off for like 5 years, got them to a point, sold them for, I think it's like 30-40 million, and retired in his 30s. And I'm like, what do you do? How do you fulfill your life for the next 50, 60 years when you don't have anything to do? Yeah. And what he does is he's worked, I mean, he's the tightest person I've ever met in my life. And he's worked out that he can spend X amount of money every day for the rest of his life and still be fine. And he just does like these small little trips. And I'm like, that's fine for a month. Yeah. But then what's the purpose and point? What have you done? It just feels odd to me to want to retire. Yeah. I get wanting to do a job that you enjoy, or wanting to do a hobby or something that's non-reliant on money, but to want to just stop and I couldn't think of anything worse.
Yeah, well, that's complacency at its finest, right? That's not, and there's such a difference between complacency and enlightenment, right? Like people might, I am nothing, seek this enlightenment. That's different than complacency. Complacency is the other way, right?
Yeah,
that's just like going so far to a point of, it's like complacency has, it's going to sound bad, but almost an eerie narcissism to it, right? Mm. It's like complacency is I am so worthy that I should be able to do nothing, and the world can just provide to me, and I will be complacent with what I have, versus almost this sort of, I want to still fulfill my duties as a human being on this earth. And there's just such a different element to just throwing it all in. Like, that's just like, okay, well, it's over.
It feels like quitting to me.
Yeah.
It feels like you just give up. And I guess that's the sportsman in me that just doesn't understand that. I don't understand how someone can just quit and give up and not want to do more. But I guess that's why we are what we are and where we are, because of that constant drive forward.
And that's okay. And I think, maybe some people just aren't wired to have that, and it's just, or they feel like they need to take that break and they need to stop. I don't be curious to see what happens with your friend in 10 years. I can speak for myself. That just would never fly, right? It's not, and it doesn't need to be making gobs of money. It doesn't need to be, but it's something, right?
Yeah, being purposeful.
It's a duty of service. It is like, how do you serve? How do you, and that's, I kind of ask myself that daily, is like, how can I serve my family? How can I serve? Like, there's an element that is human nature and biological nature that we are here to serve each other, right? We are here to, and that means provide for our families. That means provide for, be a light to others. Like, we are here to serve, and we are here to serve each other. And we are all, at the risk of sounding woo-woo and weird, like, we're all one, and we all need to contribute to that, right? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes maybe for people like you and me, I can speak for myself, but it's like when that desire to serve is gone in somebody, it sort of feels like entitlement, where it's like, no, you, buddy, like, we're all in this together, mm-hmm. right? So, but again, it's just one of those things where maybe we're all wired different, right?
I don't mind the fact we're wired different because it makes it easier to win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's just, and just be able to, there's enough to go around for all of us, right? Mm-hmm. But if you want to work for it, then that's kind of how you get it, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I absolutely agree.
Martyn, where can everyone find you, man?
Here. I'm around. Just type in the name, you'll find me. But I mean, for myself, Martyn Ford Official on Instagram, and then I like to keep it just there.
Right on.
Keep it nice and quiet and chilled, and try and focus my time on me and my family, and not so much on socials at the moment.
Smart move.
Keep all the secrets in here.
Right on. Thanks, brother.
Thank you so much, buddy.